To come to grips with the scale of the disaster which has hit Brisbane. It's the city's worst floods in over 100 years and comes as the confirmed death toll across Queensland has risen to 12, with grave fears for 9 of the 51 people still unaccounted for. Scores of Brisbane suburbs are already underwater, others soon will be. Officials say that by early tomorrow morning, matters will be much worse than they are already. That's when a flood peak higher than in the 1974 disaster is expected. Brisbane is Australia's third largest city and home to 2 million people. These the main areas in the danger zone, with a vast swathe of a densely populated city turning into a giant lake. And nearby Ipswich badly hit too from the overflowing Bremer River. And to give you an idea of just how devastating the predicted 5.5 metre peak would have on Brisbane, this 3D view shows the huge area of the CBD and elsewhere that would be flooded. Much of the city will be underwater and the Botanic Gardens would become part of the river. The marinas on Kangaroo Point would be submerged and the trendy suburb of New Farm inundated. Bulimba and Morningside would also go under. And as we move east into Moreton Bay, the flooding gets even worse. Brisbane Airport, can be seen to the top right of the screen, is completely underwater. SBS's Kathy Novak is now at one of the evacuation centres housing thousands forced out of their homes. Kathy.
We've had more death, more destruction, and it's going to get worse. The water is peaking in Ipswich, leaving a third of the city, nearly 4,000 homes underwater, and up to 1,500 people in evacuation centres. And here in Brisbane, by this time tomorrow, nearly 20,000 homes will be swamped.
Brisbane awoke this morning a smaller city as the river slowly swallowed whole streets and suburbs. Jindalee in the southwest gradually disappeared. One family took what they could and moved up the hill, then had to do it all again to find higher ground.
Can only move your stuff and hope for the best.
Sofas, dining tables, whatever could fit went into the trailer, everyone pitching in to get out what they could.
Yeah, I was just helping some people out.
The Brisbane River is racing. Boats, cabin cruisers and tugs no match as it surges. They escape lightly compared to the Drift restaurant beer garden. Locals were urged to stay away, but some couldn't resist gathering at the riverbanks to watch.
It's just unreal. There's just, water absolutely everywhere. And to see just debris floating down the river, it's just incredible.
This incident is not a tourist event. This is a deeply serious natural disaster. Stay in your homes, do not travel unless it is absolutely necessary.
CBD business owners and staff did everything they could to remove stock as the floodwaters rose.
Last night we were here till about 10:30. Getting all our wines out from underneath, and which lucky we did because everything's underwater now.
Last night the Brisbane City Council actually mentioned to us that this is the lowest point of my land. If I stand here, the water will reach about 2 metres, which is behind me, which is reach here. So the water is expected to go up to here, if not higher. That will be the 1974 flood, which is about the same level.
An unfolding disaster that no one can stop. This body of water is indiscriminate, from exclusive waterfront properties to new high-rises and even the RSPCA. It's like 1974, only worse.
The city of Ipswich and the city of Brisbane are vastly different places than they were in 1974. We have significantly higher populations. We have a more dense construction.
20,000 houses, 2,000 streets and more than 3,000 businesses to be swamped by brown sludge.
Queensland has already faced some dark days and there are dark days still ahead.
Ipswich is facing its worst flood in more than a century. The water's already lapping at rooftops in many parts. Evacuees returned this morning to find their worst fears had happened.
Sick in the guts.
Like many others across the state, the heartache is only just beginning.
I know in my bones that Queenslanders are up to this and that we can take it.
They'll need to muster all the strength they can get.
Over in the Lockyer Valley, there have been elements of a war zone. Army helicopters flying essential personnel in and out against a backdrop of buildings blown apart and the search for bodies of those who didn't make it.
In In the Lockyer Valley, the epicentre of flooding earlier this week, improved weather means a chance to find more tragedy. In Grantham, a town nearly washed away, more dead have been discovered. One man inside a house, another in a creek near a bridge, the death toll almost certain to rise. With dozens still missing in the Toowoomba Lockyer Valley region, the Premier begged people to leave searches to the professionals.
I do understand anyone who's waiting for a loved one does want to be out there sometimes helping, but now's not the time.
Meanwhile, spectacular rooftop rescues continue.
Unbelievable. The people that were plucked off roofs.
This woman, in the early stages of labour, was medevaced out from her inundated Lowood home. As for some, evacuation centres doubled as hospitals.
All on the floor, all on beds and in wheelchairs. And being treated as need be.
Many towns remain isolated. In the Brisbane Valley, just west of the capital, a collapsed quarry flooded homes anew.
I just want to help these oldies cross the road.
And he did. His neighbour John Hunt is regrouping after water hit in the space of 5 minutes.
Went up to the local filling station. We got out of this gate fine, came back, and it was running right the way down through.
One local mayor said that controlled releases from Wivenhoe Dam, while protecting Brisbane, were partly to blame for their isolation. Jenny Fisher is among those trapped. Her family separated.
2 of my children aren't here. One's trapped at Lowood and one's trapped at Marburg because of the school holidays.
Elsewhere in southern Queensland, Chinchilla is bracing for a worse flood than what it suffered 2 weeks ago. Residents forced out from homes they'd only just returned to. Raina Saram-Pyatt, World News, Australia.